Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I spoke to this conference 3 years ago, I warned that the housing time bomb of shortage in housing had already started ticking. Today, 3 years later, that time bomb is finally on the brink of exploding. Now is not the time for political correctness, it is the time for honesty. My Conservative, Labour and Liberal Democrat counterparts will never admit it, but I will, that this shortage has been fuelled by the unprecedented influx of 4 million people to this island in the past decade. Britain is already overcrowded. Look at our hospitals, our schools and our roads. And the truth is, this government has no clue as to the extent of illegal immigration. This, of course, is the same government that only deports 4% of those who refuse immigration status. If we want to make our world a better place, let's start by changing our foreign policy, because we will never achieve a more compassionate world by getting the whole world to move into Britain with us. The Lib Lab Con always have a standard approach to the housing crisis. Frantically keep building more homes, millions of new homes, even at the expense of the most breathtaking countryside in the world, which is the British countryside. Keep extending social housing, but they simply will not admit to the British public that the only way to stop that time bomb ticking is to get a firm grip on immigration. The dilemma they have, of course, is if they admit that, then they have to admit that we need to radically control our borders. And we all know there's only one way to do that, and that is out of the European Union. And none of them want to do that. Only this party, ladies and gentlemen, puts Great Britain before the European Union. And a UKIP administration in government or coalition would have to curtail uncontrolled immigration more than any British government has ever had to in British history. That is what is required if we are to avert the greatest housing crisis this country has ever known. No ifs and no buts. Something which not all of you may know, but in this basement of this spectacular Great Hall, 2,000 of your fellow countrymen endured 1,000 nights and days sheltering from Nazi bombs. Imagine what they must have experienced and suffered. Imagine how they must have felt. We will never forget that 800,000 people died during that war so this nation could be independent and free. And we owe them a debt of gratitude for the freedoms we enjoy today that we will never be able to repay. This party knows that the sacred words in our name, United Kingdom independence, are words which have been written in blood. No other nation, ladies and gentlemen, in human history has known 1,000 years of national independence. Immeasurable sacrifices have been made for the Union Jack to still be flying proudly over this soil. And they are mistaken if they think we will step aside whilst the Lib Lab Con voluntarily sign away with a pen 1,000 years of national independence, sacrifice and British history. The Battle of Britain is not now by air, land or by sea, but by the ballot box. And come the 23rd of May, victory will be ours. We will win the European elections. We will win because the EU is sinking. And we can either remain part of that sinking ship or swim away as Great Britain. And every UKIP election success, from by-election up, is another step towards the gate that leads out of the European Union. And whether it's housing, economics or crime, more and more the British public are recognising that a vote for us is a vote for real change and common sense. The Tories may want it to be believed that we are a flash in the pan, a mere protest party. Protest parties do not become the fastest growing ever in British history, Mr. Cameron. Your cosy, pro-EU, three-party system has been shattered once and for all. We are here to stay. Housing is a subject which affects all of us intimately, and we seek to create choice and eliminate chance. We will not play politics with people's lives and people's livelihoods, and our housing policies are not designed to oppose, but to propose real solutions for real people. For example, our innovative medium-hold residential tenancies, with a duration of 3 to 10 years, would create value for both landlords and tenants. It would bring thousands of people out of the negative equity trap. More than an assured short-hold tenancy, but less than a lease. Medium holds would mean less transient and more settled populations, strengthening communities and community spirit by giving people a greater stake in where they live. UKIP's different kind of politics is not shackled by ideology, and our housing strategy will never be politically left or right or politically central. It will be just what is best for Britain. Housing requires joined-up thinking. The government spends billions each year on housing benefits, yet we still have one of the highest rates of homelessness in Europe. The average life expectancy of a homeless person in the UK is 42 years, less than the life expectancy in Ethiopia and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Tragically, it is reported that 40% of all homeless females have been subject to sexual abuse. The same government want to build on our beautiful countryside, but do nothing to build on our disused brownfield sites. The same government litter the countryside with wind turbines, knowing that to cover up their ineffectiveness, they are forced to spend billions to build emergency backup plants, the cost of which will be paid ultimately by industry and the consumer. Wind turbines as a choice in microgeneration is one thing, but imposing them on the taxpayer and undermining British industry is quite another. The government unveils the bedroom tax to save money and then spends more than they save on rehousing the very people the tax makes homeless. Our housing policy is holistic. It goes beyond bricks and mortar. Where we live affects how we live, how we think, and how we contribute to our society. It is one area of public policy which affects not only standard, but quality of living too. And different from the political elite, we are expansive in how we view housing, how it correlates with criminal activity, and how it can be a tool for bettering the life of the elderly, creating jobs, and spurring on economic growth. So we say, scrap the bedroom tax. It is unfair on British families and brings no real savings. We say, integrate the planning and building control departments in local authorities. This would cut costs, simplify the planning process, and potentially reduce council tax bills. We say, reverse direct housing benefit payments to claimants. Pay this instead to landlords, reducing abuse of the system by claimants who receive housing benefit lump sum, disappearing, often abroad to their country of origin, not paying the landlord who is left with mortgage arrears. We say, make loitering with menace an offence. Stamping out hives of gang activity, particularly in high-rise blocks, giving the power to police to break up gangs of youths congregating aggressively. No elderly, disabled or vulnerable person should be made a prisoner in their own home. because of fear of violence. It is part of housing policy to eradicate muggings and violence by pushing forward for zero-tolerance policing in our council estates and shopping centres. We say connect the 800,000 derelict properties currently lying empty in our country with 1 million people that are homeless, half of which live on the streets, the other half in squats or temporary shelter. Control immigration first to stop homelessness proliferating. And then let's orchestrate an interest-free government loan scheme secured against the derelict properties to landlords with insufficient resources to enable the upgrade of these properties on condition that those landlords will agree to sell or let their property on a discounted basis with direct preference to those that are homeless. At a time when our public debt is at 1.193 trillion, or 74.5% of GDP. This government should not be spending taxpayers' billions on a housing Green Deal scheme which only 10 households have subscribed to so far. Neither is it right or proper to ask British taxpayers to subsidise mortgages to people who have only been here 6 months in order to appease the European Union. All this from a government which cuts essential services from the elderly, the needy, and from our hospitals in order to save money. There are those, ladies and gentlemen, there are those who say we are hardliners, not politically correct enough. To them, I say, I, for one, am anti-political correctness. Because that which is politically correct is not necessarily morally correct, and policy should be driven by heart and soul and not the media. The British people don't want political correctness, they want fairness. It is because we believe in fairness that we are the only party which has opposed all the unjust, brutal wars in the Middle East and beyond, including now Syria. It is because we believe in fairness that we are the only party which has stood up for Greece and other European nations being bullied by the EU and propelled into poverty by Troika. It is because we believe in fairness that we are the only party which would restore grammar schools, providing opportunity for children in less fortunate families. Yes, it is because we believe in fairness that we are the only party which, as the earlier motion debate said, we will end the plight of homeless ex-servicemen. Of the 21,000 British servicemen returning to civilian life each year, officially a quarter will find themselves homeless. Reintegrating back into society after warfare is not easy, and we all know that our soldiers, the best in the world, are not paid what they deserve. We, ladies and gentlemen, expect them to die for us, but they can expect that we may put them at the back of the housing queue behind people who have barely contributed to and just landed on this land. Some of you will be aware of the case I engaged of the ex-soldier Mark Wilkinson in Hounslow, who, having returned semi-disabled with severe injuries from Afghanistan, was told that he would have to climb several flights of stairs to reach his flat. We would make ex-soldiers like Mark a housing priority, extending local authority duty of care towards them. And let me answer what was discussed in the debate earlier. We promise, here and now, never to allow a single person who returned from fighting for Queen and country to sleep rough without shelter, food and healthcare facilities. And shame on all the governments that have allowed that to happen. There are times, ladies and gentlemen, in politics where we must not only look at the price of things, but the value. Ladies and gentlemen, patriotism is not a sin. It is a virtue. There are those who say that UKIP are a one-man band, that we're all about Nigel Farage. To them I say, I will not apologise for having as leader of this party potentially the greatest Prime Minister since Winston Churchill. Great Britain needs a leader, not a manager, to lead us to economic prosperity, to lead us out of this housing crisis, to lead us out of this European Union, to lead us. And that leader is Nigel Farage. Great Britain is more than the European Union. We remember what Great Britain was and what Great Britain can be. And that is what unites us all here today. That is what the United Kingdom Independence Party is all about. Thank you.